Once you have your animal drawn out, you want to double check that it is as big as you need it to be. It should be filling up the whole space of the rectangle. I have a bird. Do you think I'm going to be able to cut its feet out with scissors easily? No. So that's why I drew the branch underneath the bird. The branch will be cut out instead of the feet and the shape of the bird. I want to get from my drawing to cutting out my drawing to tracing the shape of it onto a piece of styrofoam. So to get there, once you finish your drawing, cut it out just along the outside shape. It will look like this when you're done. You're going to take a piece of styrofoam. This is your stamp. This is where you're actually going to be putting the ink. It's very thin, you can see. But when I draw onto it with a pen, and I press pretty hard with my hand, I'm not only making a line, but I'm making a dent. That's called an indent. You should be able to feel that dent with your fingers. If you couldn't see, you should be able to feel the picture, like Braille. So to get there, with your clean piece of styrofoam and your cut out animal, you want to trace the shape of it. Again, you're not worrying about details inside for this step. Step one should just be the outline of its shape. Once you have it lined up, trace carefully with a pen, pressing as hard as you can. If you press too hard, you're going to make holes. You don't want to do that. All you need to do is press a little bit harder than you normally would. You can always go back over it if it's not deep enough later. So I'm just holding my picture down in the area that I'm tracing so that it doesn't move on me. If you want to freehand draw it right on your styrofoam, that's great. But there's no erasing, which is why I think cutting out your original sketch and tracing it is the best way to go. Alright, so it looks like my pen didn't work there. There's still a dent, so it doesn't matter if I have the pen visible or not. But this is where you want to be. Once you have your outline traced, you're ready to make a print. This is the printing station right here. This is just warm colors. If you notice, we have red, orange, pink, yellow, gold, and white. White is there only to add to a color to make lighter. Notice that there are these gray squares. There should be 5 at each station. I have a warm color station here and a cool color station over there. The printing plate is where you put your ink. This is not paint, it is ink, and it's thick. And we need to put it on here and roll it out with something that looks like a paint roller. It's actually called a brayer. It's hard rubber. So this ink it's old. You're going to notice sometimes some liquid comes out with the ink. It's okay. You don't need a lot of ink. All you need is about the size of a quarter. That's what I have. So now that I have about the size of a quarter of ink on here, I want to have my stamp with me, but not too close. And I'm going to roll out the ink. I'm going to roll out the ink so it's nice and thin. And I have it on my brayer. I don't need this plate anymore. I'm going to roll it right onto my stamp. You do not want too much ink. I'm picking up a little more for my plate, my printing plate. You don't want too much ink because if you can't see the lines, if the ink goes inside of those lines, it's not going to make the print. What we want is those lines to be clean still, that negative space to show. When you're putting the ink down onto the plate, please remember to replace the cap back on the ink so that it does not dry out. At this point, you want to work kind of fast because the ink does dry very fast. If I stand here and talk to you too long and I don't make my print, once I have the ink on here, it's going to dry out. So I have the ink rolled on nice and even. You can see my lines don't have any ink inside. That means it's going to make a nice, good, clean print. Now I have a lot of paper choices for you to choose from. You want to choose a color that's very different from the color ink that you chose. I chose yellow. If I got yellow paper, it wouldn't show up. So I'm going to choose either a cool color or a dark color to make it stand out. If I had a dark color ink, I would want to choose a light color paper for it to stand out. I'm going to choose its opposite, which is purple, and I'm going to do this back at my seat. Back at my table, I will find a clean brayer and a paper towel. I want to lay the paper down on top of my stamp. Now, some of the paper is a little small. That's because I cut it from last year. The stamps were a bit different size. It's okay. It'll still work. Just try to line it up in the center. Lay your paper towel over top. The reason why we do that is because the ink might slide out and get on the brayer. If I don't put a paper towel on top, this clean brayer will get dirty, and I need this one to stay clean. So I want to roll it on top of the paper towel. I'm steamrolling it on top. I like to think of a steamroller because steamrollers are heavy, which means I'm using a lot of pressure. I'm standing when I do this. The more pressure you put, the better it'll look. I can take my paper towel off. You can see that ink would have been on my brayer, but it's now just on the paper towel. I can reuse that paper towel later because the ink dries fast. And when I peel this off, you can see that made a really nice print. This made such a nice print because I put a thin layer on my stamp, and also because I did it quickly. If I wait too long, the ink will dry. As soon as you get the ink rolled on your stamp, you want to choose your paper color and go right back to your table, put it down on the stamp, and roll over top with the brayer. So again, I put my paper down, I put my stamp on top, I put a paper towel on top of that, and I steamrolled it flat. And then when I peeled it all off, it made a very nice print. You can see it made a mirror image because of how it lays and picks up. So now that I have this one print, the ink dries fast. It'll dry in about 5 minutes or less. I can see it's shiny still, so it's still wet. I'm going to leave this right at my seat, and I want to go make more prints, different color combinations. So I want to clean this stamp off. To do that, all I need to do is run it under water with a paper towel. I can also just use a wet paper towel and wipe it, but you want to make sure it's completely dry before you put new ink on top. So your goal is to make 8 really good prints of just the outline of your animal. Step 1. Notice there is no detail. It is just the outline of your animal. This will probably take 2 art classes. And then once we're done with that and we have 8 that we're happy with, or 6 to 8, you're going to move on to step 2, which will be our next video.